What's going on, everyone? I'm Jamie from Wisdom from the Trail, and today I'm going to be going over the 417 working holiday visa in Australia. Everything you need to know about it before you apply. So with that being said, let's jump into the video. So what's going on, everyone? Hope everyone's having a good day. I'm having a great day. Let's get into this. It is February 1st, 2020, so this is up to date for the 2020 calendar year. But if you're watching this at another period in time, things may have changed, so make sure you check the Australian immigration site to see what the changes are. Let me give you a little bit of introduction to myself. I'm Jamie. I've been traveling around Australia and Southeast Asia for about 3.5 years on and off. I've spent 2 of those years in Australia on a working holiday visa, and so I want to make a video series on it. The reason I want to make a video series on the working holiday visa in Australia was because when I decided to go on my visa, there were hardly any resources available for me. So my transition to Australia was quite difficult and bumpy. So with that being said, I'm going to share all of the knowledge I have with you in order to make your time and your transition to Australia a lot more smooth and enjoyable. So with that being said, let's get into the content. So first things first, what is a working holiday visa in Australia? A working holiday visa is classified as a visa that is issued to certain countries and their citizens the opportunity to work and live in Australia legally. This is perfect for anybody who wants to have a long time traveling around Australia and fund their travels, because Australia is a really expensive country. Basically, on this visa, you become an Australian citizen for 1 year. You will pay taxes, eat the Australian food, live the way of life. It is just an awesome experience. So now that we know exactly what a working holiday visa is, let's talk about the requirements you must have in order to be eligible to apply for one. So let's talk about the first thing. Requirement number 1, you must have a valid passport from the following countries, which I will put up on the screen right now. I'll leave it up there for a little bit. And we're back. So if you are not from those countries, you still might be eligible on the other Australian working holiday visa, the 462 visa, which I will do a video in shortly. And if you're on neither of those lists, then unfortunately you were not able to get the working holiday visa, but you were still eligible to go on a visitor visa or a student visa, depending on what country you were from. But this is primarily working holiday visa information. So requirement number 2 is that you must be between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. With the exception of Canada, Ireland, and France, we have the opportunity to apply from the ages of 18 to the ages of 35 years old. So the other countries, I'm sorry, but I don't make the rules. So say the following situation happened. You were 30 years old and you apply for your working holiday visa, but you turn 31 before it has been granted to you. There is still a high probability that you will receive your working holiday visa. And the same situation goes for the Canadians, the French, and the Irish who apply when they're 35 years old, turning 36. If you have any questions throughout the video, you can leave me in the comment section below and I will answer it personally for you. Requirement number 3, you must have a valid passport with at least 6 months remaining on it. So in my opinion, if you do not have at least 1 year left on your passport, I would suggest renewing it or getting a new one. And the reason I say this is because if you really love Australia, or if you decide that you want to go and travel around nearby countries, it is going to be a much harder time if you do not have a long time on your passport remaining. So with that being said, do yourself a favor, get that stuff in order before you leave for your trip so you do not have a headache, an expensive headache at that. Requirement number 4, you must not have a substantial criminal record. I will leave a link in the description to what the Australian government's definition of a substantial criminal record is, but an overview of it is if you have any misdemeanors or a criminal record on your name, it will hold up the processing time for your visa, or it will make it so you cannot apply for the working holiday visa at all. So if you do not have a criminal record to your name, do not worry about this step, and we will go on to step number 5. Requirement number 5 is that you must have a clean bill of health. One thing that the Australian government really looks into is tuberculosis. If you have spent a long period of time, specifically 3 months, within Southeast Asia, Central America, South America, the Middle East, or Africa, then you will probably be subjected to a tuberculosis screening. It is a very expensive process, which I had to do on my second year because I spent quite a bit of time in Southeast Asia, and it basically doubled the price of applying for the working holiday visa. But if you have not spent a significant amount of time in those countries, you should be good to go. Requirement number 6 is that you must not have a dependent child on you. So if you are a mother or a father with a little child, you are probably not going to be able to get a working holiday visa. And the only way you would be able to get a working holiday holiday visa if you left the kid at home, which is bad parenting, and I do not condone that whatsoever. So if you are a mother or a father, then you will probably have to just resort to the visitor visa or a student visa as an alternative, but the working holiday visa is not for you, so you cannot have a child with you. Requirement number 7, you must be able to financially support yourself upon arrival in Australia. The Australian government has said as of 2020 you must have the equivalent of 5,000 Australian dollars, and if you are uncertain to how much that is in your currency, I got you covered. Boop! This is the currency equivalent for all of the eligible 417 working holiday visa countries, so you're welcome. So you must have proof to that or access to that upon arrival, but in my experience, I'll be honest, I have never been checked or asked to prove that I had equivalent of 5,000 Australian dollars. Although during my time in Australia, I have met some backpackers and some travelers who were asked to show proof of 5,000 Australian dollars. So just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean it won't happen to you, so make sure that you have access to 5,000 Australian dollars or equivalent of. Requirement number 8, you must apply for your visa outside of Australia. There are 2 exceptions to this rule. If you are already in Australia on either a bridge visa or a visitor visa, then you can apply for your working holiday visa in Australia at one of the Australian embassies. But other than that, you will be required to apply for your Australian working holiday visa outside of Australia in your country. And finally, requirement number 9 is you must not have already been on a 417 working holiday visa. If you have, you must apply for the second year working holiday visa, which is very different. But if you have not done your farm days, which I will get into in another video, then you are not eligible for that either. So you cannot have already done this visa. So finally, we're done the requirements that you need to have to apply for the visa. So let's just talk about what the visa will give you once you get it. So first things first, let's talk about the cost of the visa. The total cost of applying for the working holiday visa as of February 1st, 2020 is $485 Australian dollars. So say you applied and paid the $485 for your visa, you will receive an email from the Australian government granting you your visa. Once you have been granted your visa, you will see a section saying time of grant. Say you get an email from the Australian government on February 1st, 2020. You have a time of grant for February 1st, 2021. What that means is you must enter Australia within that 12-month period. If you fail to enter Australia during the 12-month period, you will not be allowed in the country as they've given you 12 months to enter. So enter within that period. So once you enter Australia, you will then be able to live and travel and work and do whatever you want for 1 calendar year upon arrival. So say you get granted on February 1st, 2020, which we talked about before, and you book your flight and you arrive in Australia March 1st, 2020. You will then be able to stay and work in Australia for 1 continuous calendar year all the way to March 1st, 2021. This visa is continuous. If you decide to leave the country for 1 month, that 1 month is gone from your visa. It does not get added on and take your new date to April 1st, 2021. It will still be March 1st, 2021. So keep that in mind when you decide to travel in and outside of Australia. So let's talk about what kind of jobs you can do in Australia. Well, you can do basically any job that you can get. Most people on the working holiday visa will do farm work, cafe work, hospitality work, construction, a variety of jobs, but essentially you can do whatever job you are hired to do. I will say this, if you do have a skill in your country, you should try and do that in Australia. Australia is only a country of 24 million people, and they are looking for skilled workers all of the time. So if you are a tradie or have a trade certificate in your country, that will be a huge bonus for you to work in Australia, and it will potentially count for your 88 days of regional work. But overall, you can do any type of work that you want in Australia as long as you get hired to do it. The maximum time you can work for one employer is 6 months. You cannot work for an employer for more than 6 months unless it is a special condition, which I will leave a link to in the description below with access to that and all of the information that I've talked about in this video. So this visa is good for 12 months, but it is extendable up to 2 times for a total of 3 years. And the requirements are different each time, but it is an extendable visa as long as you complete regional work. When you are in Australia on a working holiday visa, you are expected to pay taxes just like an Australian citizen would. However, the tax situation is slightly different for working holiday visa holders. For the first $37,000, we are only subjected to pay 15% as opposed to 19% that Australians pay. However, once we are over $37,000 for the financial year, we will then be subjected to pay 32.5% for every dollar that we make. It is important to know that the financial year in Australia is July 1st to June 30th. When you do get a job in Australia, you will be entitled to something called a superannuation. A superannuation is essentially a retirement fund that is set up for Australian citizens, and we as working visa holders will receive the benefits as well. So what this means is when you get hired on by an employer, your employer by law is required to pay 9.5% of your total hourly wage into a superannuation fund for you. So what this means is if you make $20 an hour, then your Australian employer is required to pay $1.90 or 9.5% of your total wage per hour into your superannuation, and you are able to claim this when you leave. However, as of 2017, the Australian government has decided to take 65% of our superannuation away from us and only give us 35%. Why? Because they can, and they don't want us to be rich. Struggles out here, man. It's a struggle. And as for the superannuation, it does not get taken out of your base wage. So if you do make $20 an hour, you will still make $20 an hour plus 9.5% of your wage. And last but not least, the last perk on this visa is that you are able to study in Australia for up to 4 months or 17 weeks. In my opinion, if you decide to study in Australia, I would get a student visa. I would say do not study on a working holiday visa. It defeats the purpose of a working holiday. So if you decide that you want to study in Australia, I would get a student visa instead. So that is the end of the video. Thank you for bearing with me. There is a lot of information here, and I hope that this video helped you. For all of the resources I've talked about in this video, everything will be on my website below. I will leave a link in the description to it, which will have everything you need to know in detail and a whole article written on this topic. So as for me, I'm Jamie from Wisdom from the Trail. Thank you for sticking around, and I will see you later. Peace.